This is Habitudes Lesson 1, and our EQ is how might I apply the lesson of the iceberg to my own life. You're going to see a riddle, and you need to be with a partner, and I think we all have a partner. Y'all can be together back here, Tracy. You're going to have 10 seconds to write down the best answer for the riddle, okay? The best answer for the riddle. Don't say them out loud. Just say it to your partner. Otherwise, someone else is going to hear your answer. Does everybody understand what we're doing? Okay. Here's the riddle. You knew immediately. Okay. Write down your best answer. Okay, who has an answer? Your kids will know your kids will know this. Some of your kids will know this. Okay, Miss Bledsoe, what is the answer?
An egg.
It is. An egg.
An egg? E-G-G egg?
An egg. And how did you know this? Where does this come from? Do you know where it comes from?
It comes from the Hobbit.
It comes from the Hobbit. Okay. Think about it, an egg. A box without hinges, key, or a lid, yet golden treasure inside is hid. Get it? Okay. Let's think for just a minute. What are some items, let's just brainstorm, what are some items that have an exterior and an interior? With your kids, I would probably pull somebody up and have them write it on chart paper. So just, what are some things?
A car.
A car.
Building.
Building.
Parallel lines cut by a transversal.
That's true. It's true. They have
Exterior
angles.
I'll take your word for it.
Your head.
Your head.
A banana.
A banana.
Peanuts.
Peanuts.
Your shoe.
A Cadbury egg.
Oh.
Okay. Of the items that we just thought of, on your list of what we just said out loud, which items on our list have insides which are more valuable than the outside?
Banana.
A banana, definitely.
A house.
Peanut.
A house.
A phone.
Yeah.
Phone.
But not a potato. They say the skin is better than the inside.
True.
Peanut.
That's what I said.
The
inside's better than the outside.
Peanut.
Good suggestions.
Jewel.
When we think of items that have an exterior and an interior, both are important. If you think about the banana that you said, if the banana did not have the peel, we don't want the banana. We're not going to be eating a banana if it had not been protected by the peel. How in the world would this relate to an iceberg?
It's more than what you see.
Say it louder.
Oh, it's more than what you see.
More than what you see? Yes, exactly.
Its shape depends on the outside elements that have formed it.
Ooh, true. That is very deep. When you come to the image, and maybe all of your kids will understand that the bottom part is still the iceberg. The first time I saw this, I just thought it was a reflection. I didn't quite get that that's part of the iceberg. So when you get to the image, you may want to kind of explain that. There is a YouTube video that I found that shows a simulation of the Titanic and when it hit the iceberg. What do we know about the Titanic? It's the same. Do we know when it happened?
April 14, 19.
How do they know the date?
Because it's my birthday.
Okay, do you know the year?
1912.
1912? Okay. What was so unusual? I mean, lots of times ships sink, so why was this a big deal?
Only God didn't sink this ship is what the creator
Yes.
said of it.
It was supposed to be unsinkable. Lots of people on board. What did you say?
We talked about great mythology, pride. Pride goes before a fall.
Into ambitions.
When I had mentioned you need to have this pulled up outside of you, you also want to have clicked on your clip and have it in a window down below, because if you notice it says show 10 through 13, you don't want to waste time showing the advertisements beforehand. Okay, so National Geographic to scale did a simulation. So I want you to notice the iceberg in relation to the ship. Okay, I'm gonna back it up, I want you to see it one more time. Think about the size of the ship, the size of the iceberg. Talk about what you just saw.
The iceberg looks really small.
It looks small on the surface.
Comparison to the ship.
Here's it.
And the iceberg fell apart.
The damage was done. The danger was below what you could see.
Okay, what'd you notice?
Looks like it just scraped the side.
Mm-hmm.
The iceberg looked smaller than the ship.
The iceberg looks so small that supposedly, and somebody can correct me if this is not true, but when I researched, they were warned, and they didn't think it was going to be an issue. They thought the iceberg was such a small thing, it wasn't going to stop them. What else did you notice?
At first, it looked like the iceberg got most of the damage.
Yes, it did. So how did that small iceberg sink such an enormous ship?
I was just gonna say the exterior might not have been given as much thought as the interior. Maybe the exterior was not rich enough to withstand that hit.
You measured
Oh, have a look.
Another image, when you're looking at the picture of this iceberg, if you're going to put this in mathematical terms, about what percent is actually visible above the water of this picture?
Maybe
8, 10. Okay. We only see the tip of the iceberg. And we do see about 10%, 90% of most icebergs are below water. Now, having said that, there are icebergs that float because they have no foundation. And they're just going wherever the waves take them in the ocean because they have nothing to ground them. Most icebergs do. 90% is below. The iceberg. The iceberg represents your leadership. At this point, when you're doing the lesson with the kids, you need to make sure you talk about leadership. Because for some kids, as soon as you start talking about them being a leader, you're not talking to them, so they're not listening. Because they don't think they are leaders. What are some ways that all kids are leaders?
Well, they lead themselves. I mean, it's very personal.
by example to others.
Very much by example to others. You can think about in a classroom how one child can change the climate for the better or for the worse of a classroom. The Habitudes, the first 13 lessons, which we are doing this year, they're all about self-governing, self-control, and self-leadership. So have that conversation with the kids or they're going to tune you out. The 10% above the water is your skill. We all have different skills. We all have different talents. The 90% below the water is your character. And that 90% is what can sink the ship. Talk about that for just a minute. What does that mean?
Your 10% could be something
Well, I think,
Yes?
the character is, who are you when nobody's watching,
Right.
And some of these kids, they may not be a leader in the classroom, but they may be like a leader within their family. Maybe they're firstborn, maybe there's all those dynamics going on with them. But I just think, who are you when no one's watching?
Yes, exactly. So many times in the office situation, I'll have kids I'm trying to talk to, and I'll say, do you have younger brothers or sisters? They're watching you. They're going to do what you're doing. So, yes, very much so. Can you think of any famous people? We wouldn't want to pull in anyone that we're related to or that we actually know in person. But can you think of any famous people who've had all the skill in the world? Incredible skill. More skill than I will ever have. But the 90% sank the ship because the character was not there. The foundation was not there to uphold the skill. And consequently, it crashed.
Michael Vick or someone that's a sports player,
Yeah, I was
they
gonna say.
sinks themselves by their activities outside of their job, Yeah. Elvis Presley, probably.
Who do you think the kids will think of when you come to this slide? Who will the kids probably? Because there are a lot of things happening right now in the news.
Amanda
The
Bynes.
one that-
Jackson, yeah.
The football player that supposedly has beaten his child or whatever, and,
The one that knocked his wife out in the elevator, who was that?
yeah.
We're talking about that.
Mhm.
Right now.
when you get to this point, pages 1 and 2 in the student book, and it's very short, have a story. This is also in the teacher's edition. You want to either read this, it's up to you how you want to do it based on your class. You can put them in groups, however you want to do it, but they do need to hear that story. So when you get to that part, you're going to stop and make sure that they all get the lesson. There is a going deeper that you'll need to read out loud. That is only in your book. It is not in their book. So when you get to this slide, you're going to want to go through the going deeper. There's also a list of 4 different truth statements. And to me, the best way to do this would be to print the 4 so that you can then hand a group, here's yours kind of thing. Otherwise, it's not going to work with those slides because you won't see all 4 at the same time. So you're going to group. So let's go ahead and do that. Group yourselves in a classroom setting. By the way, I would do the grouping myself probably. Tim Elmore says that the best number for a group is 3. That if you have more than 3, someone's not participating. So with that in mind, group yourselves, and I'm going to give you a truth statement. You can.
She'll work.
No, I thought Rick
You're out.
told me to go with that.
Chips and salad. You go sit
I
down.
want you to.
Okay, your task. You are given a truth statement. Your task is to discuss it, and if you need help with vocabulary, then let me know. So discuss it, come up with what you think it means, and be ready to share the truth statement. And maybe you don't agree with it even. If there's something you don't agree with about the truth statement. Here you go, Miss Simmers. So take a moment with your truth statement. And decide who's going to be your speaker because you're going to share in just a moment. You have a separate truth statement for the rest of the group.
You need to go to some other group. You're not helping me.
And there may be some the truth statements you really may have less help.
Yeah, but I don't think natural ability makes you mature. I mean, look at all the gifted athletes that act. They don't act in their own best interest, and end up losing, the ability to play. All the musicians that have died of drug overdoses.
Decide on your speaker. You need a speaker.
I'm older than him when he died.
Okay, group 1. Group 1 speaker, if you'll stand up and tell us what your statement is, and then what do you think it means?
Your leadership ability has the potential to carry you further than your character can sustain. We just said that there are natural abilities or gifts that you may have that will get you to a particular place, but the thing that will hold you there is kind of the way you deal with those pivotal moments in which you got there. And so we just said, especially when it comes to places of difficulty or making very difficult decisions, your character is what's eventually going to shine through. And so we said that we agree that that's true, that what will hold you there is your character.
So in other words, this 90%,
I believe that there's.
your 90%, unless that is strong, this part can't carry you. Your skill, your potential is only going to get you so far. This is what's going to matter, whether it can stay in the long haul. What about group 2?
Leaders get into trouble when their integrity doesn't keep pace with the momentum created by their natural abilities. And of course, athletes come to mind that have, natural in my opinion, God-given talent that, that carries them so far. But like you said with the iceberg, they've got to have that foundation, the integrity, the character to help them with those big moments and those plateaus they reach as they, go higher with those gifts.
Thank you. Group 3?
Well, there is no correlation between natural abilities and maturity. And I think we struggle with saying that's absolute. I don't know what kind of study you would do to say that there's no correlation. I think that most people that are told or taught through their life that you're gifted in some area or you're good at something, there has to be some kind of, or I don't say have to, there seems to be some kind of responsibility that goes with that to, or an expectation. I don't know, you know, and again, it may be how you're brought up, or if your parents said, look, you know, you're this, you don't need to squander this gift, or your coaches or your teachers. So I don't know that there's no correlation, but on the other hand, we've all seen, like athletes or musicians or anybody that squandered a great gift and a great, you know, how many actors have committed suicide or something that all of us down here struggling, working like we do, could think, man, if I had your money, I would be on top of, well, we might not, but you know, but having ability doesn't make you mature necessarily, of course. So it's I don't know that there's no correlation, but certainly just having the natural ability doesn't ensure that you're going to reach your potential or act mature with it, I don't think.
Yeah, that's a good
Justin
example.
Bieber is a good one they would probably tie to, because he's been known to race the cars and do the things wrong, but he's so young, I don't think.
Yeah,
he really,
even though he's got so much.
he's got a lot of ability, but he's, you know, still.
Well, I think your physical, your body won't keep up with the abuse, you know, kind of eventually you'll just, no matter how gifted you are, how good you are, your body's going to fail at some time. And if you don't act mature toward, or make a mature decision, I guess we're equating maturity with what wisdom, you know, not just getting old, but learning your lessons and learning how to maximize your abilities for your own benefit or what's good. I think that's all I have to say.
Thank you, thank you. Okay, group 4.
Here we
That's
go.
what I have to say.
When we read this, we really first thought of, should I read the statement maybe?
Yes,
Okay.
please.
Our commitment to integrity can easily be eroded by our love of progress. And we immediately thought about that statement that the ends justify the means, or that, you know, whatever we have to do to get to even our most noble goal, if it's wrong, we're willing to do it. And we were thinking about Atlanta when they were cheating. You know, they had this noble goal to look like they were achieving, and they've lost all their integrity now for that. So
That's a great example.
that's it.
Thank you. With this, you probably will have to make sure they understand the vocabulary. True leadership is built from the inside out. Whatever happens on the outside of life stems from what's happening on the inside. The iceberg that does not have the foundation, that's the rare iceberg, but they do exist. They're floating icebergs. It's going wherever the wind takes it, because it does not have anything to stabilize it. When we see a house that stood for decades, we know it has a strong foundation. The 10%, what we see, is a reflection of the 90% which we don't see. And the opposite would be true. How does this relate to our lives?
Well, I mean, when you build a house, you always start with that firm foundation. And how many times I've heard my dad say that house is going to be condemned because the foundation's cracked.
What are ways our foundation can be cracked?
Drugs.
Drugs? Any substance abuse?
Referring to students, I think just when they move around a lot and there's not consistency in their home and their stability, that foundation has cracks throughout that we build upon as teachers, if you're thinking as far as education.
Yes, we see that all the time with students who've hopped around.
I think we could also remind them too, just to bring it back to the classroom a little bit too, that you can cheat and make a good grade on a test or quiz, but do you really know the material? Is that gonna eventually catch
Yes,
up with
because you're not
you?
gonna have the foundation.
Right, right.
You know,
Or even as simple as, somewhere I was talking to a student this week where they were all upset and thought they needed tutoring. Well, when I started talking to the kid, they had not studied at all.
Right.
They did zero studying. Well, you don't need tutoring, you need to study. You know, you haven't built your foundation. What were you gonna say,
seeing
Mr. Betters?
the pictures of your houses that you put on there, and I know in the reading, you know, the story, the book, he really zeroes in on the foundation part, and that's certainly, you know, you gotta have a good foundation. I mean, that's a great, and everything, every idea that comes from that. But I'm thinking of what's his name? Songwriter guy. It's got a song out that's entitled "The House Where Nobody Lives." And I've seen houses that looks like nothing structurally is wrong with them until the family moves out of it and just not living in it. What goes on inside the house, not just the family, not just the concrete slab, but just living in it. When you move out of it, it does. It just starts falling apart. You know, it just out of not any living going on in there. And I think that's, besides your character and stuff like that, there just got to be something going on inside you that keeps it going. You know, I don't know. I guess depression might come under a heading like that when people just give up, or you know, something difficult that comes your way that you can't overcome. You know, again, causes people just to quit living, quit being anybody, kind of thing. That song is what's his name?
I know exactly the song you're
Great
talking
song.
about.
The House Where Nobody Lives. You just talked about how it's run down, but it's because used to
Mm-hmm.
there was love in that house. You know, used to there was family in that house and voices and stuff, and now it's just falling apart.
I think you could
The
use
windows are
that.
broken.
You could use that to stretch it to what so many middle schoolers this age just do by nature, is they group themselves, they look at appearance, they look on the outside, and you can't use that outward appearance even when they're looking at themselves. They can't think, well, I'll never be a leader because I don't have this kind of clothes, or I'm not popular, or I don't look this way, or I'm not a football player. So
A great example of that is when
I'm not a popular kid.
when David was chosen as the next king of Israel, when he came in to search out Jesse's children and his sons, and he came in, oh, he's the guy. And finally he goes, well, who you got left? And David walks in, he said, that's the guy. Because I look on the inside, not on the outside appearance.
You can see how just from this, any Habitude classroom, while the lesson's happening, is going to look different. Because you're going to, based on the kids' discussion, you're going to be able to go different avenues with this lesson and with all the lessons. That's one of the things I really liked about the curriculum. Your 10%, your outside may appear pleasing, vice versa. Your 90% character is the test of who you are, is the part of you that will either sustain you or will sink your ship. So that lends itself to all kinds of discussion. In the student book, there's a self-assessment with every lesson, so there's the self-assessment you'll come to. There's also an exercise. Remember, there's so much, you may not get to all of it, and that's okay. Just be sure that you don't do all the fun and leave out the heart of the lesson. You know, I'll just leave it up to your discretion, but try to mix the fun with the big idea of the lesson. Another art extension you could pull in for this, if you had time, would be to either draw a silhouette of the person or to draw an iceberg and have the top 10% and then the bottom, of course, and have them fill in the 90%. What is the 90% that will sustain you? And it can't be anything physical about the person. It's got to be the inside. And that's it. I will do this every